Hey everybody, Coach Michael here. Hope you're doing well today. Um, we welcome to the new week, Monday, and I got a couple of emails that I'm going to cover, and then I'm going to share a couple thoughts about a concept that I've never talked about here on the school that kind of applies to one of the emails a little bit, and just a sort of an interesting concept to talk about in when you're thinking about insomnia, talking about insomnia. And if anyone comes on live, feel free to leave a question in the chat box there, and I'll do my best to get to that before I'm done. And okay, so let's just jump right into the two emails that we have here. So the first one is from Davendra, who says, I did an all-nighter, staying awake all night. I slept deep for a month. Then after some time, I did it again, and I became a bit light sleeper. I had a light nap and 10 days of sleep. Now I wonder, is it alternative to CBTI and how I can't seem to remaster it? Does it regress sleep? I watched your videos, and some people have found this helpful. Should I do it more and more so my insomnia passes away? And how should it be done to not have light sleep? Okay, thank you, Davendra, for your question. Appreciate it. I wasn't 100% sure exactly what you were referring to in your question, as far as being an alternative to CBTI or something like that. But I picked up on a couple things that hopefully one of the two is what you were specifically referring to. So the first, you mentioned that you took a nap, I think, and you were wondering if that was like an alternative to CBTI or problematic or anything like that. And the answer is no. A nap does not have to be problematic in any way for someone with insomnia. Most people with insomnia, they say that they've tried and they can't when it comes to napping. I like to suggest that it is an opportunity if anyone is struggling because they had a short night of sleep, an opportunity to just lay down maybe after lunch and just kind of see what happens. I wouldn't go very long, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that. Set an alarm. What we call a short nap is a small potato. It's not going to ruin your night of sleep. So if you happen to doze off a little bit or take a little nap during the day, not a problem. Perfectly fine. The longer naps and the later in the afternoon naps, that's where they can get problematic. So you want to make sure you're not doing that. And, it's pretty easy to not allow yourself to do that, especially if you're not just dozing on the couch. You can sometimes let time get away from you. So maybe set an alarm, maybe go lay down in bed or something like that. If you just feel like resting for a little bit and maybe catch a few winks, as they say, but maybe have an alarm set or someone who can get you up so you don't oversleep. Okay, so that's the first thing Davendra, I was wondering if your email was talking about. The second thing was kind of interesting. You mentioned that you stayed awake all night, and then it almost sounded like you did it again. And so I want to talk about something that's a concept that for those who've been around CBTI for a long time, probably have heard this term before, and that is called paradoxical intention. Paradoxical intention is the idea that someone with insomnia is struggling to sleep, that if they simply try to do something that's really easy to do, instead of something that's very difficult to do, then maybe the insomnia can resolve. And so the standard kind of textbook instruction is the person with insomnia is asked to try to stay awake all night long, thinking that that's what they say they do anyways. It shouldn't be that difficult to do. But then it's stay awake all night, stay awake all the next day, and then sleep the following night. It's very taxing, as you can imagine. You don't hear this instruction given a lot in clinical settings anyways, in my experience. It's very rare. But that's what it's called, paradoxical intention. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit more after I'm done with the other email here. So I just want to kind of throw that out there that in case you were asking about that, it's not an alternative to CBTI. It's sometimes, in rare cases, a component that is used with CBTI, but it's not common. So, but that's kind of what it means. Paradoxical intentions. The intention is a paradox. It's not to sleep. The intention is to do the opposite, which is stay awake. So anyways, just want to comment on that. So then we have our second email, and I'll pull that up. And thank you again, Davendra, for your email. Please feel free to send a follow-up. We'd love to hear more from you. Email from Sabine. Hope you were well. Thanks for answering my questions last year. I think you were working with Daniel last year. It really helped. My sleep has been a roller coaster ride for the past year. It would get a little better. I'd stop thinking about sleep and my sleep would plateau. I'd feel like I'm half awake, half asleep all night. Maybe I'll get 3 to 4 hours in the first half of the night. Lots of dreams, but I'm not stressed about it and keep living knowing I'll get over it eventually. Okay. But then I would stress about the fact that my sleep has plateaued even after I've forgotten about sleep. And I would start thinking about sleep again, and my sleep and anxiety would get worse, and the cycle begins. This cycle is super mild these days, though, and I usually catch the cycle before it starts and talk myself out of it, okay? I use a mandibular advancement splint for, and this gets a little technical here, but what Sabine is talking about here is an oral device that a dentist can make to advance the jaw a little bit to help with a little bit of sleep apnea, usually the mild to moderate type cases. So these numbers, AHI6, it indicates that the sleep apnea was fairly mild. And then RERAs. So I'm gonna talk about this at the end of this email. So hang tight here. So mild sleep apnea, using a mandibular advancement device, but the mandibular advancement splint made only a small difference to my sleep. My question is around hyperarousal. These days, I'm not really stressed anymore. I don't think much about sleep and have just accepted where my sleep is at. I do still get the odd occasions when I stress about it, but overall, my emotional state is much better. I guess I'm just wondering why my sleep plateaus, even though I've accepted where I'm at and don't obsess about sleep anymore. I do have some symptoms of hyperarousal, the vivid dreams, though this has gotten much better, the not sure if I'm awake or asleep, brain fog, memory, etc. But I don't have the hypnic jerks, palpitations, sweatiness, or the alertness, hyper awareness anymore, and haven't for quite a long time, although I used to. I'm super sleepy all the time and generally don't struggle to fall asleep, but I have many moments throughout the night where I feel like I suddenly gain consciousness very briefly, but that just mixes in with the rest of the night of feeling like I have super light sleep. I rarely wake up alert and worried or have a racing mind. It's more just a night of light sleep and vague dreams punctuated by these brief gains in consciousness. I think you mean brief moments of consciousness. I don't feel like the night is 8 hours, but it does feel very long, even though I'm, quote, asleep. It's so weird. Is this still hyperarousal? And if it is, why is it not going away, even though I have mostly forgotten about sleep for several months now? Hope to hear back. Thanks, Sabine. All right, Sabine, thank you for your email. Appreciate it very much. Okay. So let's talk about some things about Sabrine's email here. First, Sabine, you mentioned plateauing, really common. The whole journey with insomnia, it's not a straight linear thing. There can be gains and setbacks and things like that. People kind of working through not just some behavioral change, but usually more in a more complex way, working through thinking change, thought change, and that isn't just a straightforward thing. Everyone's a little different with that. So first of all, the plateauing, not that uncommon, honestly. So I wouldn't be concerned about that. You mentioned the breathing side of things, sleep apnea. And Coach Daniel talked about this about a week ago in one of his broadcasts, talking about some sleep apnea. So I wanted to share my thoughts on this. And in your email, Sabine, really kind of, I think, shed some light on this. So as a sleep coach, we're always listening for verbiage. We're listening, we're parceling the words that we hear to really kind of see which direction's a person going, what's really going on, what might be some helpful guidance and all of that. And so when I read your email, the sleep apnea thing was kind of an interesting comment there that you put it in there. So, you mentioned AHI, sleep apnea. What that stands for is apnea-hypopnea index. So how many times per hour something happens. And specifically, what's happening in an AHI is snoring, then sometimes silence. That's the obstruction in the breathing, upper airway during sleep. So moments with decreased breathing and brief sleep disruption. So the breathing volume actually changes. It gets less for a few moments, maybe 5, 10, 20, 30 seconds, something like that. And then usually kind of a snort and a gasp. And then the person briefly wakes up, doesn't really remember that, but they briefly have a bit of an activation in their brain. So again, your brain is always trying to keep you going. It's trying to protect you at all times. So if your breathing is disrupted by sleep apnea, then your brain is not going away. It's going to keep you going. It's going to cause your sleep to get more shallow at times so that you restore muscle tone, and then you breathe normally for a few moments until everything's kind of back to a stable thing. So AHI is moments with decreased breathing. And then you mentioned this term RERAs. Okay, so in case anyone wants, we're going to kind of nerd out here on breathing and sleep. RERAs, respiratory effort related arousals. So this is snoring, just like apnea, hypopnea index. It's snoring, but no decrease in breathing. So your breath volume doesn't really change discernibly, but there's still brief sleep disruptions. The brain is activating. It's keeping you from your sleep from going very deep. So you can kind of see what I'm talking about here between apnea, hypopnea index, and RERAs. It sounds like you got some sleep apnea going on, but kind of in the milder sleep disruption kind of side of things. And that's common, all right? A lot of people think it's kind of a progression. You know, people get these RERAs first, and then it can kind of turn into more apneas and hypopneas and all that kind of stuff. So I don't want to get lost in the weeds here, but what I'm reading when I read your email is I'm thinking, especially with your comment that your mandibular device didn't really create much of a difference in your sleep, you may have a bit of both insomnia and sleep apnea. It's not uncommon at all. So, you know, it's something that I've come across a lot in all my years in this field. So I think, you know, your question, is it hyperarousal? It's probably some, but some of your descriptions about your sleep. Let me just jump back in here to your email. You talked about being sleepy. Here's some vivid dreams. I'm not sure awake or asleep, brain fog, memory, but not some of the other things that you experienced before, the hypnic jerks and things like that, the palpitations and all that. I'm super sleepy all the time. That phrase right there is kind of one of those phrases that you don't hear very often in someone who has kind of the classic ongoing insomnia with lots of sleep efforts and sleep-related anxiety. You don't hear that phrase all the time. I'm super sleepy all the time. You'll hear I'm tired all the time. I'm fatigued. I'm exhausted, but not sleepy. And then you mentioned you don't struggle to fall asleep generally. But then here's another one. You have many moments throughout the night where I feel like I suddenly gain consciousness very briefly, but that just mixes in with the rest of the night, feeling I have super light sleep. So basically what I was just describing is, I wonder if your mandibular device is adequately correcting your sleep apnea. That's a great question for your doctor. Find out if that therapy is working well for you. You described a lot of things that suggest that maybe it's not. And we can't diagnose. There's no diagnosis or treatment of any official kind here. We're just sharing our thoughts. So I'm just sharing my thoughts based on your email. I would definitely ask your doctor to make sure, see if this oral device that you're using is adequately treating your apnea hypopnea index, but also your RERAs. Other things that can kind of make your upper airway a little bit unstable is sleeping on your back versus your sides, because gravity will pull soft tissue down into your airway when you fall asleep. If you have sleep apnea, usually it's worse when you're on your back. And then the second is compared back. It's worse on your back versus on your sides or stomach. The second thing is in REM sleep. A lot of times sleep apnea gets a little worse. So what that often means is that we hear a person describe kind of the dreaming, remembering some dreams, or kind of like, yeah, I'm always kind of going in and out of this dream sequence. That can be because if the person has sleep apnea, it's probably a little worse in REM, sometimes a lot worse. So that's another indicator you put in your email. But just the idea of these brief consciousness, I think you refer to it, something like that, where you're you're just kind of your sleep's kind of fragmented. It doesn't feel very restorative. These kinds of experiences are suggestive that maybe the RERAs are playing a significant role here. But it is, as I said before, it's very possible to have both. Okay, so some hyperarousal could be around. Maybe some untreated sleep apnea possibly is around. You got something to ask your doctor about. Definitely talk to your doctor about your breathing. Okay. So, and as far as your other, the hyperarousal side of things, I just want to comment also, a lot of your email was, you show like a great, or a pretty good attitude towards your sleep, as far as you're not focused on it. You're not worried about it. You can read that in your email that you're very comfortable. If you have a bad night, it's not like, the big one. It's not like going to lead to, ongoing just snowball insomnia. It sounds like I read a lot of, a reasonable amount of confidence in your sleep. That is really good. So anyways, those are just kind of my thoughts. And it was an interesting email, and it kind of got me thinking a lot this afternoon. So thanks for writing in. So the main thing there is you can have both insomnia and sleep apnea. They're not mutually exclusive. Okay, before I finish up with a topic here, I want to see, we have a message here, live message from Midtown Rumble. I sleep 5 to 7 hours a night, but I wake up with tired eyes, which go away after maybe an hour. Okay, no way to know if you're sleeping what you need. 5 to 7 hours, if you feel like you're not sleeping quite enough to feel okay the next day, then you can experience some things like tired eyes, or just a general sense of a little bit of fatigue during the day, depending on what degree of hyperarousal is present, if it's present. So and it goes away. Usually, when the tired eye thing, sometimes just, being awake a little bit, kind of just, get your bearings and kind of get going for the day. Usually that can kind of subside a little bit. So yeah, I wouldn't be concerned about it. If you're, concerned about your sleep, and as far as insomnia goes, check out our school and start to learn and make insomnia go away. And we'd be very happy to share that information right here. Let's see if I got it. There it is. Okay. sleepcoachschool.com. That's the website. And right at the top, there's a link to submit questions, just like you did. And anyone can submit a question there. And we have all kinds of great information at the school as well. So check it out. Here is a message from Ellie. Hey, Ellie. Great to hear from you. See if I can see over your message here. What has helped me tremendously with my insomnia is acceptance, being kind to myself, and try to understand the process, accept the symptoms of insomnia, and controlling my anxiety. Self-kindness is huge. It's one of the big, natto concepts. So we definitely want to encourage everyone who's working on their sleep, learning about sleep, educating themselves, understand you got to be kind to yourself. Sleep is like this big paradox. There's a lot of very odd components to it, and it can be a really challenging thing for someone to really kind of start to understand. So be kind to yourself. It's not an easy thing. It's not just there's no quick fix. When you're changing your thinking, be kind to yourself, be patient, try to be courageous, when you're changing some things having to do with your sleep. And once you can develop that demeanor and that attitude towards your sleep, like Ellie's talking about, where a night of sleep doesn't mean your insomnia is going to start being worse or it's going to develop or anything like that. It's just a poor night of sleep is just maybe an occasional poor night of sleep, and that's all it is. So you don't factor in your sleep to how you are during the day. That's kind of one of the big parts there. But people people who try to control their sleep, they're trying to control something that they can't. It's not possible. No one can control their sleep. You can't make yourself sleep. You can't make yourself get back to sleep. So you just do the best you can, but being kind to yourself is a great reminder there, Ellie. Absolutely. It really can help with controlling sleep, and not trying to control sleep. Anxiety, just be open with yourself. If you're anxious about something, maybe writing it down during the day, but not not treating yourself unkind. So I think that's a great message. Ellie also says, I still suffer from once in a while insomnia, but I talk myself out not to be afraid that sleep is effortless. And it will come. Thank you, Coach Michael Dan. You guys are awesome. Hey, thank you so much, Ellie. Really appreciate it. We always love getting messages from you. And it's just great, that you're showing that you understand the thought processes that are necessary for great sleep. And it's a natural process. It's like we say this a lot, but it can't be said enough. Sleep, the sleep drive side of things, it's natural. It's completely natural. So then it's the thought patterns and the thought processes and all of that's the brake side of the gas brake model. That's really the more involved side. So it just takes some time. And that's definitely what we do at the school. We help people on that journey, and we call you can call it a destination, but it's sort of it's a thought, almost like a philosophy, I guess, about sleep. We call it natto, not attached to the outcome. And good sleepers are in that natto state. They don't tie anything to their sleep. It's just a very kind of matter of fact, indifferent sometimes kind of way that they talk about their sleep. And it doesn't mean they're great sleepers every single night, but they just have that attitude, and we call it the natto, kind of the natto philosophy. Okay, and then one more from Ellie. Also, Coach, I know as a coach you won't put it out there, but have you ever suffered from something? That's a good question. Okay, and I'm asked this a lot, and it's a rare night that I've had over the years, but I've always kind of thought people are on a spectrum, right? Kind of on a spectrum of, how alert you are during the day. Everyone's kind of different. How deep you sleep at night, everyone's kind of different. I've always been a little more in the sleepy during the day side of things, to be perfectly honest. Instead of the trouble sleeping at night, it's the get through the day kind of. And I think I've always just had a little bit of that. It's just kind of who I am. But I will share one story with you. I like this story. You'll get a kick out of this. Okay, so back in the mid 1980s, I'm a sleep technician, brand new, and I'm like doing sleep recordings, right, on paper with polygraphs. I should show a picture of one of those one of these days. Crazy stuff. And so after a while, there was a period of time that I would, go home after work in the morning because I worked all night, and I would go to bed and I would close my eyes and I would start to picture my own brainwaves, which is something I spent all night, every night at work watching other people's brainwaves, and I could see the transitions and everything. And I would start to kind of picture my own as I was drifting off. And that, there were a few mornings there where I would kind of like, right as my brainwaves were starting to change from my waking pattern to like a light sleep pattern. If you want to like wake to sleep to stage one kind of sleep. And I would picture it happening almost in real time, and it would kind of make me think. And that is one of the very few times that I wasn't worried about my sleep, but I was kind of like, I'm thinking about this too much. And I forget exactly what I did. I think I just started to kind of like read a little bit and kind of get my mind somewhere else. And it went away, but I do remember that. And it was, it was an interesting experience. That's probably the closest I've come. So anyways, I hope that answered your question, Ellie. But ongoing struggle, no. I just haven't been that type, I like to say I'm not smart enough to have insomnia. People with insomnia, they're often kind of deep thinkers. They're kind of just, very, a lot of them are like that, and I think that it's challenging. Believe me, I've worked with people with insomnia. I've helped them for, over 20 years. And I think I have a pretty good understanding of it, where they're coming from. But yeah, myself, not so much. Anyways, there you go. And let's see. And again, thank you, Ellie, for writing in. Appreciate it. And let's see, we've got, Ellie says, awesome, great, thank you. And yes, insomnia is pretty interesting in a weird way. Yes, it is, and in college, I was in psychology, and I was always kind of interested in this sleep thing. It was kind of like a class you take in it. And I got really kind of interested in it. Everyone was kind of interested in it. I still remember that, but I was kind of like really interested. I was like, what is this stuff? It's just so paradoxical, and I think that's what always interests me with it. It is one of life's great paradoxes. Okay. There's another message here, Ellie. Can I ask kind of a long question? I'm kind of getting the end of the recording here. I'll tell you what, though, if you go to the website and email us here at thesleepcoachschool.com, right at the top of the homepage is a link. You can click there and send an email message. Then we can answer it properly for you. We don't want to have to rush through it or anything. So just kind of finishing up here. I want to say one last thing. I had one last kind of concept I wanted to just share. One thought. We were talking earlier, the first email about this paradoxical intention concept. And I was thinking about it more. And, it's an interesting concept to tell someone to stay awake all night. Which is, that's what paradoxical insomnia is. It's a person with insomnia being told, usually by their doctor, a sleep doctor, to stay awake all night, instead of struggling with, quote unquote, trying to sleep. I kind of understand the concept. It's very challenging and taxing. It's not, you don't hear it very often at all, but it got me thinking about this idea, paradoxical intention. It's almost like every night should have an element, at least, of paradoxical intention. You shouldn't have the intent of doing something to make yourself sleep. So in a weird way, every night should have at least a degree of that paradoxical intention, where you're not trying to sleep. You're not trying to force it in any way. If you're awake, you're just enjoying yourself, kind of trying to enjoy what you're doing, trying to stay relaxed, just like, enjoy the time. Do what you like, watch a show, read a book, do some coloring, whatever you like to do. But the idea is that you're kind of showing your brain that you're enjoying it. You're the sleep, being awake at night's not a threat. There's nothing to worry about there. And it takes time, but these kinds of behaviors at night can help with that. So in a weird, not weird way, but in a maybe a little different way, that paradoxical intention, it's kind of an idea that is actually, part of what good sleepers do. They don't go to bed with like the intention that they're just going to like immediately fall asleep or something like that. They go, lay down because it's comfortable and they're sleepy. They know they're sleepy. They perceive that. And that's like another big topic I really like to talk about. And then sleep just kind of happens. So they don't have the intention of making themselves sleep. So that's just kind of some thoughts there I just wanted to share. I was thinking a lot about the paradoxical intention idea. So anyways, at thesleepcoachschool.com. And Ellie says, yeah, all right, I will. Great. Thank you, Ellie. 11, Ellie, Sally. 7, we had another Ellie. So 2 Ellies say, okay, so yes, please do. And anyone else, go to the website. We'd love to get questions emailed to us, and we'd love to answer them on our open classes. Okay, that's it for today. You guys all take care, and I will see you down the road. Bye-bye.